So, if you've been an avid follower of this channel, you know two things are very true. One, I love the Miami Heat. I'm a huge Miami Heat fan, and I love young teams in the NBA. I love watching a culture grow, new players coming up with new things, and finding new ways to wreak havoc in the NBA. And the Houston Rockets are one team that really caught my eye. From all the videos you've seen me make about them, you know that's very true. But with all that being said, they made some questionable signings this free agency that I think a lot of Houston Rockets fans, a lot of fans around the NBA are kind of low on. But at the same time, I kind of understand where they're coming, even if I was low on them in the beginning when they first happened. And maybe that's just me trying to cope and find ways to find good things in these. But also, I do think the Houston Rockets are definitely trying to send a message here. And I think this is going to have more positive than negative impact, especially on the score. So let's talk about why I feel like it's a good thing and why I think this Houston Rockets team are about to surprise a lot of people and be the most fascinating team in the NBA next season. So, going into this offseason, the Houston Rockets had a couple problems that were clear to everybody that need to be addressed before they hit the next level, which is being competitive in the Western Conference. That is, they need a clear floor general that understands the game as a high-level playmaker. And I love KPJ. He's very good, but he's not really a primary creator, and I think his skill set very much fits that six-man role. If anything, they need a actual coach that can have his players buy in and fit an actual system around these guys and give these guys an actual role instead of just throwing shit out there and just hoping it sticks and just changing players' roles and knocking them out of their rhythm. And they need to buy in on the defensive end really, really bad. The only real player that I see buying on the defensive end sometimes for both is Tariq Eason and Jabari Smith Jr. Even then, those guys sometimes have lapses on that end. And going to the NBA draft, it looked like they were ready to attack one of those big issues, and that is their primary creator issue, which they selected with their fourth pick, Thompson, the standout from overtime, amazing athlete, great playmaker, overall needs to do better at finishing around the rim, but high-level decision maker, extremely athletic, and hell of upside, and has a lot of defensive potential. But again, his jump shot is a huge question mark, and even with all that athleticism, any rookie struggles to finish at the rim, and he has those issues sometimes. But again, it looked like the Houston Rockets had their playmaker of the future that they were going to try to hand the keys to as a primary creator. But going to free agency, they did one thing that I think baffled a lot of people, and that is sign Fred VanVleet to a 3-year, $130 million contract, effectively making it look like Thompson is definitely coming off the bench for this team. Which, at first, you're like, why would you not give your primary creator the keys so he can develop quickly? But at the same time, I understand where Ime Udoka and the Houston Rockets are coming from. Thompson may not have the skill set to be effective immediately as a starter. Again, we know that he's slightly a bit of a project. He has every single bit of the tools to be great in this league. But again, that jump shot needs some ironing out, a lot of ironing out. And overall, he needs to get better at finishing. And I think playing behind Fred VanVleet and having some vets help him can not only minimize some of the mistakes he may make as a playmaker, but can truly help him in the future and accelerate his development, rather than just throwing him out there to the wolves sometimes. But another thing they did in the NBA draft is, at the time when they're picking at 20, they didn't think he was going to be there, but they picked up Cam Whitmore. And the reason why Cam Whitmore slipped that far is for multiple reasons, whether it's medical issues or, horrible interviews and people questioning his attitude and motor for the game. But at the end of the day, they got a top 6, top 7 talent at the 20th spot in the NBA draft. And right now, with them trying to change their culture and overall feel for the team, I do think that they can start with trying to help him buy in and understand his role on this team and actually try to get him to develop and actually become a fruitful NBA player and gain all of his potential, which I think is overall a pretty good gamble, especially at 20 to make. I don't think you're going to pass up on that guy sometimes, especially when all of those other teams passed up on him. I think you just take the risk at that point. But then they went into free agency and they picked up Dillon Brooks, which now looks like Cam Whitmore is going to be the third string at the 3 spot behind Dillon Brooks and Tariq Eason. Now, Dillon Brooks, with all the problems that he brings and with all the stigma around his name, one thing that man's always been able to do is defend his freaking ass off and compete. And I think his attitude of we're not fearing anybody, we're always going to come at anybody that challenges us is definitely going to be very good for the Houston Rockets. It's going to actually breed some culture and some actual competitive fire in some of these guys. And I think that's going to spread throughout the entire roster. So I do think overall that's a pretty nice pickup. I understand 4 years, 80 mil is kind of steep, but he's also very young, already made an all-defensive team, and they're showing some offensive flashes here and there. You can hope that the shot selection and his overall jump shot does improve, especially on this team when he's going to probably get a couple more touches. But at the end of the day, I do think it's overall pretty good pickup. Just maybe not that many years, but it is what it is. Then you picked up Jock Landale, who's a pretty good backup for this roster for Alperen Sengun, and gives them at least somebody that you can put in at the end of the game for defensive situations, because Alperen Sengun, does struggle on that end sometimes. And I do think that he overall, for the price point you got him for, is a pretty good signing. But then you also pick up a vet like Jeff Green that just won an NBA championship with the Denver Nuggets, already on this team, and has multiple clips and everything around in the NBA of just how good of a vet he is and how much he understands the game and how much he can help some of these young guys. And overall, just be an adult in that locker room. And I do think that's great to overall destroy the stigma of the AAU basketball, no real culture, no real structure to their way they play type of feel for the Houston Rockets. That's kind of been permeating through the NBA of how people feel about this roster. So picking up a couple of these guys, I think overall is just the Houston Rockets not only not wanting to be horrible anymore, but it's them realizing they need to not turn heel. There's no point in losing anymore and constantly going to the NBA draft to pick up new talent when you're already full of roster talent. The guys that they traded away and got rid of roster spots for, being Ty Washington, Josh Christopher, and KJ Martin, those guys are people that barely got any playing time. I understand that you'd like to develop the talent you have in the roster, but at some point, I guess some teams just got to realize that you can't develop anybody and you have to move on in some point. And I do think they just decided that their core is who they have right now, and they're going to try to build the vets around them to help those guys accelerate their growth and try to be as good as possible, as quickly as possible. And overall, I do think this puts some positive pressure on the young guys. Sometimes you have to realize when your team wants to go to the next direction, you realize that you're going to have to start putting the work and step your game up and really start to understand this game and start taking your shit to the next level. Jalen Green, you need to start becoming more efficient and step up as a leader for this roster. You're supposed to be the best player on this team going forward, and you need to start acting like it. You need to start being a lot more efficient in the game. You need to start showing that you have some competency on the defensive end, because you have the tools and you've shown sparks of being able to do it on the defensive end. You just decide sometimes that you don't want to play it, and I think that's going to have to end here, because the Houston Rockets have shown that they're not willing to allow you to just be bad on that end anymore. Alperen Sengun, you need to start being a way more effective defender and attempt to start spacing the floor for the Houston Rockets. Take more jump shots outside of the three-point line, and overall be competent on the defensive end. Don't make dumb reads. Don't try to gamble, and overall be able to stand your ground. Use your size. We know you don't have the greatest vertical pop, but you can still use your length and your verticality at sometimes to be able to be effective rim protector sometimes, and at least be a neutral and maybe sometimes a small positive defensive end. Nobody's asking you to be freaking Rudy Gobert out here, but the defensive lapses sometimes are very embarrassing from you. Jabari Smith Jr., you need to become a way better shooter, at least league average. You need to be able to play within the offense. You need to be able to at least show some competency and overall feel for the offense, not just as a shooter, but being able to attack closeouts, being able to make some of the right reads sometimes. Nobody's asking you to be a primary creator or be able to work in the pick and roll all game, but here and there you need to be able to at least make a jump shot on a consistent level, at least the three-point shot around a 36% clip, 36% clip. You need to be able to attack closeouts when team run out to you because you're hitting your shots. You need to be able to make the right reads and make the right passes. Tariq Eason, again, be able to play within the offense and just make smarter reads. You have all the tools to be a summer knife in this NBA. You're a great defender. You have all the tools to be a good shooter. You have all the tools to be able to attack closeouts. You're very athletic. You have an NBA ready build. Use all those things and just become smarter and become a better player in that end. KPJ, I know you probably want to be a star in this league, and I do think maybe a 6-man role probably isn't what you expected, but I think that's the best case for your skill set. I do think you just need to embrace this new role as a 6-man and a spark for this young team. You're going to have a lot of shot attempts coming off this damn bench. Ahmed Thompson, you just came in the NBA, but this is a clear sign to you that the Houston Rockets is going to give you a little bit more time to develop, and you need to take this time and get that jump shot ready. You need to get some muscle on your body, and you also need to be able to at least finish competently at the rim sometimes. Overall, I do think this is positive pressure on these young guys. You're going to need to start being better for this Houston Rockets team to be convinced that you guys are the complete future. I know you guys love it here. They're not going to allow everything to just, fall apart like they did with Silas. And I know Ime Udoka is actually one guy that's going to actually hold guys accountable. And you're not going to get minutes just because you're young here. You're going to have to prove why you deserve to be on the floor. And overall, I do think that that's the best way possible to iron out a lot of the deficiencies that Houston Rockets had before, while still being able to be a semi-competitive team and get these guys maybe some playoff reps if this team is able to pan out and be better than what people expected. But let me know guys in the comment section down below. Do you think that these are positive for Houston Rockets? Do you think these are anything negative? But that being said, this is FLB. That's my time, and I'm out.